Well, we want to start off by talking about a biblical perspective on disability, or what the Bible might have to say about disability. We're going to go verse by verse through a whole variety of Bible verses that touch on aspects of disability. But I thought by just giving a couple of general themes, it might help you with your beginning focus. The first thing I want to say is that in everything, we recognize that God is sovereign. Now, by that, what we mean is that nothing happens that either God has not caused or minimally permitted. Now, that is what's referred to as God's sovereignty. And can I tell you, I understand that that's difficult because we see many things in our world that are incredibly difficult. But our response to that is that we need to trust God. We need to trust the Lord. A great verse to think through throughout this ministry certificate program is to think of Proverbs 3:5, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He'll make your paths straight." Our response to the sovereignty of God is to trust Him, is to trust the Lord. And that is not always easy. One of the things we see related to this another kind of theme that moves throughout the scriptures is the theme of purpose. And we see it in a variety of places where I will unpack as we go through. But there's an implication of purpose in the way that God causes or allows things to happen. Now, the thing to think about is you could experience something very difficult in your life, and if there's no purpose to it, then it just feels like it's bad. Whereas if there is something that has purpose, then it just becomes incredibly hard. And we see this relative to the story of Jesus himself when he's about to be crucified, right? We see the things that he's going through, and particularly with our hindsight, we recognize that the things that he went through were hard, but they were necessary on some level because God had a purpose behind them. So once again, this is not an easy thing to say. God's sovereignty can be very, very difficult. But our response is to trust in the Lord with all our heart and not lean on our own understanding. One last general kind of principle across biblical passages that it's important to remember is what the Lord said to Paul himself when Paul was experiencing a difficult time. We'll unpack this later when we get to 2 Corinthians 12. But in response to Paul having a thorn and asking to have it removed, God's response was, "My grace is sufficient for you." So God recognizes that things that we experience may be incredibly difficult, but there's two things about that statement that he made to Paul. The first is that he said, "I will give you my grace meaning my favor, my love, my compassion." And then the second thing is that it will be sufficient. Those are two things that we absolutely have to hold on to in the midst of a lot of the difficulties that we face related to disability issues. So with that kind of a general background in mind, let's dive into some specific verses that can touch on aspects of disability.